Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on Groen Steamer Restart, Repair, and more. I'm Matt Gentile with the marketing team at Partsound, and I'm joined by our presenters from Unified Brands, Joe White, Senior Technical Service Manager, and Cliff Waters Jr., VP of Sales. Both Joe and Cliff will be walking you through some tips and best practices for starting, maintaining, and troubleshooting Groen's world-class line of steamers. At Partsound, safety is our #1 core value. So before we get started, we want to remind everyone on the line that if you have issues with your equipment performance or questions about any of the procedures discussed in this presentation, we strongly recommend contacting a factory authorized service agent who can help with your specific unit and all your commercial kitchen equipment needs. And now, let's turn it over to Joe.
Thanks, Matt. What a great opportunity for us to come together and have this discussion as we've all been faced with challenges from one end of the spectrum to the other, right? During the pandemic and some just doing normal day-to-day business practices. So I think it's such a great opportunity for us to come together. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about important steamer startup procedures, preventive maintenance, best practices, troubleshooting and common questions, importance of filtration, shopping at Partsound, and as Matt has also mentioned, Q&A and discussions. So I start off real quickly and ask a couple questions here. Have your equipment been sitting through the pandemic? Has that been some challenges for some of us? Or has your business been closed, such as a school, and your unit is just not being put into operation? Well, there's a great chance to check your equipment before bringing it back online if it's not been operational for at least about 90 days is kind of what we're mentioning. And so bringing this equipment back online will include a couple of different things. And we're going to go through some of the steamer startup things with the new equipment, and then we'll roll into some other things relative to equipment that's currently installed. So for new equipment, ensure your unit is installed and functioning properly by requesting our Groen startup program, in which we'll discuss. Once scheduled, we will have your equipment professionally inspected by an authorized service agent at no cost to you. Yes, no cost to you. And this startup program is a very significant piece to the piece of equipment on a new piece, as well as you'll find on a piece that's already installed. For installed equipment, if your equipment has not been in use for more than 90 days, contact Groen to schedule a startup. If your equipment has not been in use for less than 90 days, standard cleaning is required. It's always a great opportunity to go out, make certain everything is in operation conditions so that it's favorable during operation, and it'll lessen the opportunity of having failures during the operation of your equipment. Water quality and treatment. Now, a lot of us have various water supplies. Water conditions change, not just from city to city, state to state, but from one side of the street to the other side of the street. Within our operator manuals, there are some things that we recommend the water quality meet, such as total dissolved solids, water hardness, and things of that nature. And the reason why water quality is so important basically depends on the model of equipment you have. We're going to talk about two different pieces today. One, we're going to talk about the Smart Steam unit, which is a boilerless unit. And then we'll talk about the HyperSteam unit, which is a unit that does have a boiler in it. It's crucial to have a water quality test performed due to quality being different from location to location before installation. Proper water treatment will extend the life of your steamer. Poor water quality repair costs are quite expensive. Absolutely expensive. So best to get the startup done, get that water test done so you know the exact condition of your water. And it takes a great look at a lot of different things that's there with relative to the water. And then again, based on your location, your water supply may change frequently. There's been some customers that we've experienced here in our particular manufacturing plant that at certain areas of certain times of the year, water may come from a mountain, all right? And that's one supply type. Then it may change to the city water source. In the midst of that change, a variation of things could transpire with your unit. One being a HyperSteam unit, which uses a metal probe to actually sense the water, all right? That's what's used. If the water is too pure, then it would certainly not sense that water, and it would give you a service light, in which we'll talk about soon as well, which is quite equivalent to a check engine light, right? Or a low fuel light. It is a great indication that there's something going wrong. The question you're asking yourself while you're standing in front of it, whether you're the end user, you're the engineer, you're the maintenance person, or you're the actual authorized service agent, the question is, what does this service light mean? And we'll talk about that. But the change of water quality can certainly create that issue. Based on your, when your water supply changes, consider having your water retested, right? So again, you would have to be familiar with the change in your water supply or your water source. If you're out west somewhere, you got to know, hey, they've changed the water supply, so we need to get it tested in case there are some changes that we need to make in order for your unit to operate as it should. Most of all, monitor your treatment system, replace components as needed to avoid poor performance and service calls. And when we talk about your treatment systems, this is really predicated upon the usage of your unit, right? So if you use your unit every day for 24 hours a day, you may have to change your treatment or replace your water treatment filters a little more frequently than someone that uses it, just for lunch times, right? So just make certain you're able to monitor that and keep those things in mind in case you need to replace the components and allow yourself an opportunity for your unit to continue to perform as you would like it to, with no downtime. Basic steamer maintenance. The lime is necessary for applicable models. Leave your door open after cleaning to extend the life of the gasket. Inspect the gasket for cracks before use. Inspect the cooking chamber and overflow drains for blockage before use. Clean your cavity daily. Inspect electrical wires and connections annually. Clean control compartment. Now, if we look at this, there are some things here that apply to just the basic user, all right? So going into liming your unit. On the SmartSteam unit, we ask that even as it's recorded in the operator manual, at the end of every day, you want to take a warm soapy cloth and wipe out the inside of the reservoir. Now, as you see in the pictorial illustration, there's a steam lid that's actually covering that steam reservoir. So if you're in there and you're cooking and you see that steam lid and it looks real shiny and neat, that's probably not the reservoir. So you want to remove that steam lid, and in the bottom of the unit, you'll see the reservoir. First step is take a warm soapy cloth, wipe out the inside of the reservoir, clean the racks, and you can take a warm soapy cloth and you can also wipe the exterior of the unit as well. Now, if you happen to not wipe this unit out daily, you will then start to get a powdery type limescale buildup inside of the reservoir. At that point, as noted in our operator manual as well, you can use white vinegar to clean your unit, okay? Just pouring in a cup of vinegar, turning the unit on, allowing it to go through a cycle, it will break down that limescale for you and flush that limescale out of the drain. And if it just so happened, and I know there's no listeners out here that will go to this extreme, but I will share this with you, I do have some of my favorite customers who love to use their Groen steamer, and they cook and cook and cook and cook and cook until that limescales become that of a form that's a flaky type limescale, or a limescale that could be about the thickness of a credit card, somewhere around 8 millimeters in thickness. Well, at that point, your white vinegar would not do anything for that particular limescale buildup, and then we'll have to transition into a Groen recommended delimer, all right? And we'll talk about some of the specifics about delimer and those things that we want. They're noted in the operator's manual. It's the best place to look for it. And if you got a pen, you're gonna try to jot some of these down. You may miss one or two of them, but if it says acid, whether it's sulfamic acid, hydrochloric acids, citric acids, and etc., I would certainly say refer to the operator's manual or give us a call. Now, let's talk about leaving the door open after cleaning to extend the life of the gasket. What happens to this gasket, Joe? Someone's asking. Well, once you clean the unit, if the unit is still hot, you close that door, the gasket starts to conform to the mouth of the cavity. Well, what do you mean conform to the mouth of the cavity? If you're opening your door and you'll see a line or a crease in the gasket, when that gasket starts to cool, it starts to conform to the mouth of the cavity. And what happens? Well, once you start to cook again, you can allow the opportunity for steam to escape because you've created that crease, if you would, in that cavity by closing it, then allowing the cavity to cool with the door closed. With the door open, it allows that gasket to conform to its normal condition. Then as the unit cools, the gasket cools, it cools as it was, and it's fine. All right, so the life expectancy of the gasket can certainly be longer if you leave the door open. All right, so inspect the gasket for cracks, inspect the cooking chamber and overflow drains for blockages as well. Clean that cavity daily, everybody. I hope you're listening to me. The inspection of electrical wires and connections annually. This can be done by an authorized service agent, your department maintenance, your department maintenance guys, your engineering team, whomever that you may have in place to do this. But if you don't have anyone, then certainly revert to our authorized service agent and their network in your locations. Equipment troubleshooting, this service light, right? So let's talk about this. Remember what I mentioned minutes ago. The service light is quite equivalent to an engine light, your check engine light, and your low fuel light. Well, I'm certain none of you are like me. I'll have a low fuel light and I'll continue to drive, and then I'll finally forget that the low fuel light is on. And what happens? You're right, you're stuck on the side of the roadway. This service light is just like that. So let's talk about it. If your service light comes on within 10 minutes of operation, there are some things that you can check prior to calling for service. The service light is a direct indicator that there's something going wrong, right? So what could it be? First, I'd say check your water supply connection. Make certain your water supply connection is great. It's connected, right? Now, next, is the water turned on? And I will tell you that I do have some great customers who actually don't perform the cleaning themselves. They've got cleaning crews that come in at night and they'll mop and they'll spray things down and they'll hit the water valve with the mop and it turns the water off, or they're behind the equipment. Somehow magically the water is turned off. So in order to get you back up and going, check to make certain that the water is turned on. And then we're going to talk about, has the unit been delimed? That is grossly important, especially on the HyperSteam unit, because it uses probes which are enclosed in a boiler and you can't see the probes. So if they become limed up, you can't necessarily see them like you can on the Smart Steam with the open reservoir, with the steam, with the shiny polished steam lid that I said should be removed. Yes, that one. So let's make certain that the unit is delimed, and always refer to the cleaning section and the owner's manual when in doubt. Now, your steamer not producing steam, that's a nightmare, right? We're right in the middle of our prep work. We go in, we turn the steamer on, we're still chopping and prepping, and we're turning around, we're waiting for it, and there's no steam. There's no indication of steam. There's no heat coming from the steamer, and my day is about to be ruined because I'm going to go back to pots and pans over the stove in order to make it happen. I get that. But first, let's make certain that the on switch has been depressed. And then let's make certain the water supply is connected, back to the water being on, and most importantly, are your steamer doors open? If so, your steamer doors need to be closed. Is the generator limed up? There's another thing. If so, you'll get the service light or the delime light depending on the model. If you're working on a HY6, G, E, etc., or you're operating an HY6G or a HyperSteam unit, you'll see a service light that comes on, a great indicator as well. On our Smart Steam unit, depending on what model you have, you may have a service light or a delime light. You also may have a fault code that is generated as well. And some of those fault codes can be addressed as well by cleaning that unit. Always start there. It's a great place to start. Your steam generator does not fill with water, check the following. Hey guys, this is a go-to. Make certain it's turned on, make certain your water connection is made, make certain the water is turned on, and check for low water pressure. Now, in order to operate these units, they operate on a minimum of 30 to 60 PSI. And now for all the technical guys out there, yes, this is flow and not static. For the non-technical, they're going, what does he mean, flow versus static? There's a way to look at your pressure gauge, and once you're turning it on, it's still under pressure. You're going to see that the gauge is sitting there, which we register as static. Once you turn the unit on, water starts to flow. You're going to get that flow then on that gauge. The gauge has to maintain a minimum of 30 to 60 PSI, all right, to make certain that the unit operates properly, functioning properly through all the particular sequence of events that happen with the unit. Well, Joe, let me explain. Joe, let me ask you this question. What happens if the service light come on and I notice this every day because I turn on a hand sink, I flush the toilet, I turn on a dishwasher, and this seems to be when this unit starts to not function as it should and the service light comes on? Absolutely. Turning on another piece of equipment can certainly create a problem with your water pressure, can decrease the water pressure, which would adversely affect the operation of your unit. So those are some things we need to make certain we take a great look at. If we're seeing the service light at a particular time, is it that we're using a hand sink, we're flushing the toilet, we're happening to use a dishwasher? These are just some great indicators of things we need to take a look at. Is the screen at the water connection clogged? There's a screen on the incoming side of the water, your water valve. Sometimes trash or debris is also inside the water line that is being captured by this screen, which would certainly reduce the water flow, and this could absolutely create that service light. So let's make certain we check that. Again, go to your maintenance guys, your engineering group, call a local ASA, have those guys come out, check these things out for you real quick, and they'll get you back up and going as quick as they check it out. Has the steam generator been delimed? Again, let's make certain we keep that delimer, and based upon the operation of your equipment is what actually drives the need to delime your HyperSteam unit. Why is that? Because the boiler again is enclosed, you can't see it, so you can't tell that it's dirty, right? So service light comes on, again, let's revert to at least trying to delime it. When a service light comes on initially, remember what I mentioned a couple slides ago, within 10 minutes that service light comes on, that's exactly when you need to go to your deliming. Well, I've got some customers, let me say this again for the HyperSteam unit. Guess what? The service light is on, but it is still cooking. It is limping, the leg is half broke, the foot is uneven, the steamer is leaning to the left or to the right, but my gosh, it is cooking, so I'm gonna load it and I'm gonna cook with it until it goes into a fatal error, which shows the same service light after minutes, but then it doesn't work. Now, it is absolutely time to call for service. Well, let's call for service while the unit is still operating for you, and it's giving you that great check engine low fuel indicator light that we've identified as a service light. Let's call for service when we first see that light, or let's go in and do cleaning first, check the water supplies and those things that I mentioned prior to calling service, but make certain we delime. If the unit is still operating, it's a great time to do that. So this two-stage service light warning system, and the reason why I continuously talk about this service light is because there are a couple things that actually create the vast majority of your issues with a steamer, right? One we mentioned is the water supply, the water source, the type of water you use. Next, there's some installation type issues. Is the water size the correct size? The water line size the correct size? Is the gas pressure correctly, et cetera, et cetera. So the next common thing after the water, the installation, we're talking about the service light, we're talking about your probe system. This is very, very important. This unit has a two-stage service light warning system. This is the HyperSteam unit. Stage one, remember that I mentioned minutes ago, one probe fails, a line up, or your timing sequence fails, the service light flashes every 5 seconds, your beeper sounds once, your unit still functions. My great growing users continue to use their unit at this point, opposed to calling for service. I'm saying let's call for service, or let's go in and delime, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and delime your unit at this point. That would more than 90% of the time rectify that service light issue because of a liming or something of that nature, especially if your unit has been operating days prior to with no issue at all. Let's delime it. Let's check the water pressure. let's check those, your incoming water to make certain it's turned on. That's the time to check those things, okay? Now next, you'll see that you got the second probe. Both probe fails align up by the timing sequence fails. Uh-oh. Now I'm on the side of the roadway. I've run out of fuel because I didn't pay attention to my low fuel light. Same instance here. Service light continues to flash every second. Your beeper sounds continuously. Your steamer will not operate unless the problem is resolved. This is specific to the HyperSteam unit. On your Smart Steam unit again, this is not relevant to that, but just make certain on that Smart Steam unit, as I mentioned before, we wipe it out daily. And if we're wiping it out daily, we should be able to sustain with no problem at all. The service light comes on within 10 minutes of power up, but the water level probes are clean. So this is saying, hey, Joe said I need to clean this thing when the service light come on, and I did that. Now what? Well, the problem could be the initial water fill time. Well, what creates a water fill time problem? It could be your water refill time. What creates that problem? Or it could be the boiler drain time. So now we're saying, remember the things I mentioned, your initial water fill time, your initial water pressure has to be 30 to 60 PSI. I'm certain you remember that one. Well, is the hand sink on? Is the dishwasher on? Is there something that reduced that water pressure for the unit? And your water refill time is also driven by that water pressure as well. Your boiler drain time, if the boiler does not drain, that's a safety precaution, because if we decided not to clean the unit and now all of a sudden there's enough lime scale that could have created a block in the drain or it's draining slowly, the unit would go into that service mode. It will be out of operation until you call for service, or you get your own maintenance guys or your engineering guys to come in, take a look at it to see if the drain has been obstructed by some reason, or if the water is just not filling in time, and those things can actually address that problem and get you back up and going. What if there's low water pressure or lime scale on the water level probes? The microprocessor starts timing the water fill to the low probe initially. If not sensed in a lot of time, a stage 1 error, that's what we mentioned a second ago, will be created. Your service light flashes every second. The timer is then started again. It's going to go to your high probe. Why is this so important, Joe? It's very often that customers are asking themselves, what's the problem? What's the problem? I was just using this thing minutes ago and now something's happened, right? We get a phone call says the unit doesn't work. We're going, okay, it doesn't work because, and now we have to vet through these things. So understanding what's actually happening there can easily get you into the direction of going, now I know what I need to do. And everybody's thinking this now, I'm sure. Check your water, clean the unit, check the supply to make certain it's turned on, and things of that nature to make certain you can get it going. But once you does that, the steamers is checking these things, and if it says that it doesn't see that probe, it goes back and starts looking for the second probe. Remember, this has a 2 probe and a 2-stage warning. This is the first one. All right, so it goes back and starts over. So now the water fill continues to your high water level probe. Why does that happen? I'm certain Jim is asking that question. Well, Jim, that's because the water starts to fill. The low probe will be the first one that it would find because it's filling from the bottom up. And if it didn't see that probe, it's going to go back and look for that high water level probe because the unit will operate on 1 probe. So water fill continues to the high probe. If not sensed in the allowed time, a stage 2 error is generated. And yeah, you noted that correctly. The unit will shut down at that time. The steamer will not operate. Lime your steamer. And if it doesn't come back on, it is now time to call for service. Or again, get your maintenance guys in, or if I've got maintenance guys online, you want to go in, you want to pull those well level probes, you want to take a look at those probes, make certain there's no lime scale on the probes that would not allow it to conduct in that water. Or if you happen to have changed water from that great mountain spring water, to your local city supply, this would be a great time to go, I need to get this water tested. I should have had it tested prior to, but that may be something else we need to take into consideration at this time as well. If your upper water probe does not sense the lack of water, right, that stage 1 error is generated, the service light flash every 5 seconds. A timer start again to check the low probe. So now it's just going back, checking the low probe to verify it's reading or not, and then we'll continue with operation, or we'll give you that service light. If the low water level probe does not sense a lack of water indicating a proper drain within the allowed time, there we go, guys. That stage 2 error is generated. This is when it doesn't operate at all, right? The service light flashes every second. The steam will not operate. And now we got to call for service. We've got to get someone in there. We've got to delay our cooking process. We've got to delay our delivery time of getting the product from the steamer to the tabletops and those type things. So let's try to avoid that easily by cleaning the unit. If the low water probe is functioning, right, it is working, here's what happens. The drain valve closes, the heating cycle begins, water refills to the low water probe, stage 1 error is generated, so you still got that service light, we're still working, but the service light is a great indicator to still do the deliming and check those things that I mentioned. And the steamer will operate, as I mentioned as well. At the end of the day, take time to delime your unit. I would also recommend for some of my customers that are high volume and you got a HyperSteam unit, that every 4 to 5, maybe every 5 to 6 hours, you'd like to take an opportunity to turn the unit off and do what we call a blowdown. A blowdown is when the unit has been operating, let's just say from that morning and prep time to lunchtime. If you got a brief moment after lunch, you may want to just turn the unit off. And what it will do then is allow all that calcium buildup to be flushed out the generator. And it'll add the opportunity to, it'll lessen the opportunity for limescale buildup to occur inside the generator. Now, what happens? Well, I can't turn my unit off during the daytime. I've got to keep it going. If you've got a double stack unit, which the HyperSteams are in most cases, turn the top one off, let it flush down completely. Once it's done draining, turn it back on. It'll fill with more water and it'll come back up and you'll be ready to use it. Once it achieves a ready status, then turn the bottom one off, right? We still got one we can use while the bottom one off and drain. 15 minutes to turn that off and let it drain and refill is going to be worth more than you can imagine. And it saves a lot of downtime and a lot of frustration, especially in the busy kitchen. 4 basic questions that every prospective buyer should be asked. What product are you planning on steaming? Vegetable, starches, protein, retherm, or seafood? And what manner are you planning on steaming, batching, versatile, or a la carte? What capacity do you need? How many? 2.5 deep pans, typically 8 to 11 each. And what are the site conditions?
So good morning from the West Coast. Joe, thanks, man. That's some great stuff. So I'm Cliff Waters. I'm a little bit more of the, or a lot more of the sales side of it, but sales and service works hand in hand and can help each other greatly and help cut down on the amount of service that's needed on them. And what Joe just went through, those 4 basic questions, is what every salesman should be asking to get you started. If we can get you into the right steamer, it can cause a lot less headaches in the long run. And it's the reason that we build so many different steamers. This is our basic Intex or Vortex. It's basically a tea kettle on a stove. It's an open pot design on the bottom. It's perfect for batch cooking or low volume a la carte. You're going to hear several terms when it comes to steamer: of boilerless, generator, or boiler, and that's what drives the steam in the steamers. The other thing is it connectionless or doesn't have a water connection, and this is a connectionless unit. All of our Groen steamers, unlike our competition, come with field reversible doors. There's a lot of times that things change in the kitchen. This is a great advantage where you can switch the door from one side to the other if the flow in the kitchen changes from some reason. The other thing is we have a convection fan. You guys are all familiar with convection ovens. What works better, the oven underneath your range or a convection oven? So we've added a convection fan inside of our steamers to help that airflow and to give a more even cook throughout the cavity. Joe has been talking about low water indicator lights and automatic shutoffs. We build those into all of our equipment for safety factors so you don't hurt the unit. This particular one, because it is so basic and it is that steam kettle, steam pot design, we don't require water treatment. This is about the only piece of equipment that you ever hear that. And if you ask me from a sales side, I'm going to tell you to put a filter on it anyhow, because it just helps in the cleaning process. Again, with Groen, 5-year warranty on our cavities. We do that across our whole steamer line. This is our most popular unit. It's called the Smart Steam, and it's most popular because of its versatility. It can do batch and a la carte cooking very, very well. It's still a boilerless unit, but we put an auto fill connection. So it takes some of the burden on you. Pay attention to the low water light or adding water to the bottom of the unit. It also helps in the recovery time because you're not dumping a whole gallon of water or 2 gallons of water into the intake. The Smart Steam is filling it up slowly so it holds a little bit better. Again, we have the field reversible door, but now you move into our hands-free door latch, which is chefs just love from a safety standpoint. They can actually open this piece of equipment while holding a steam table pan in their hands and just slide it underneath it and open it. So it's a really nice safety feature. Convection fan, we got our safety features built in with our low water and automatic shut off. And again, it's got our 5-year warranty on our cavity. HyperSteam is perfect for all applications. There's nothing that this beast can't do. It has independent steam generators. So I've moved from the tea kettle to the boilerless to the generator. So it has instant recovery because of the generators. Joe has touched on the 2-probe warning system. That's where you get into it, and that's some of the pictures that you've seen in his presentation. We also have the auto clean deliming via the control panel and an exterior deliming point, which makes it really, really easy to do the delime on the unit. You can see it on the top left-hand corner. It's not on the back of the unit, so you don't have to move things out, clog up the aisle, and try and get to it. We do heavily recommend using our pure steam water treatment systems when you get into the generators and the boiler systems. And again, Joe covered all of that. We will do the water test for free. We'll get the water samples from you guys. We'll analyze them, and then we'll recommend which system we would recommend for your area. Plus. So this is a little bit of a different application. Again, it will do everything. It is a boiler-based steamer, which means that it is under pressure. It has its own boiler underneath in that cavity. The real reason people will buy a Plus is they will use it to power pieces of equipment next to it, like that kettle that you see sitting next to it. So that kettle is actually running off of the boiler that feeds that steamer. So it's a very powerful unit. We see it in large institutions is where it's most popular. It has instant recovery because all of the power is stored inside of the boiler. So you lose nothing when you open that door except with the steam that's in the cavity. And as soon as you shut it, the boiler releases it back into the cavity and it's ready to start cooking immediately. Again, Joe talked and touched on this, the waste rinse down, clean down the drain, eliminates seafoam. That's the seafood foaming. Say that 4 times really fast. Because of the way it knocks it down the drain. So you can do a full cavity of seafood in this piece of equipment where you can't do it in other steamers. Again, we stay with the field reversible door and the hands-free latch and our convection fan and the 5-year warranty that we do on our cavity. So we put the slide up, just I don't really want to get into all the numbers, but there's more to show you all the different filtration systems and how important it is for water filtration. You know, Joe touched about it, the mountain water, and unfortunately, that's my baby. I mean, we've got some towns out west that will run off of the spring runoff water, and then the city will switch it over to city water, and it can cause some trouble with us and our customers with the steamers. But I mean, there's a lot more to the most people just think of filtering out solids. There's chlorine, there's silica, there's a lot of different things, and our water is forever changing. And chlorine is one of the biggest problems with our water these days because cities keep adding more and more to it. We've never ever seen any kind of discoloration or what some people will say, oh, I got a rust stain on my stainless steel. Until recently, because of the amount of chlorines that have been added to the water, it gives a staining to the stainless sometimes, and we've never seen that in the past. But our water is forever changing, and unfortunately, it's going in the wrong direction. It's getting worse and worse. So it's a free test. We will do it for you. We'll send it to you. Our reps will come out. Most sales agency or sales rep groups represent some kind of a water company. It's not going to hurt you to have your water tested once a year. It is. You can get it free anywhere in any city, in any remote location. We'll send you the packet, put some water in and send it back to us, and we'll tell you where you're at and if you still have the right filter system or if your filters are still operating properly. One more, yep. So Groen free startup program, free. What's the commercial on TV? I mean, there is no cost to this. Why not take advantage of it? I mean, we will send out the ASA to perform the inspection, make sure the installation is done properly and that everything is operating perfectly. In addition to it, when you have this done, you'll get an additional year warranty on the completion of the free startup. There is no reason not to do this. And push your salespeople, your dealer salespeople, tell them you want to do the Groen free startup on our equipment. So we include the water sample test as part of the startup, and then we will recommend a water treatment back to you guys. There's zero cost to you guys. I can't tell you how important this is for you guys and for us as a factory, and how much it helps in our warranty rate and service calls to have that information at our fingertips.
All right, thanks, Joe and Cliff, for sharing your expertise with all of us. For everyone joining today, more information on Groen will be heading your way in our post-event email, which includes webinar replay and more troubleshooting tips. Partsound is proud to be the master distributor for Groen and your one-stop source for all of your genuine OEM parts, accessories, and consumable needs. We not only have the most in-stock Groen parts on the planet, but we also are ready to ship same day. So we have a few minutes left to take some questions, and we actually have a few in the queue from our attendees. So I'll start with the first one here. You mentioned cleaning the cavity daily. Should I be cleaning the rest of the steamer more than once a month?
Yeah, I'll take that question. So wiping the exterior of your unit should be done doing that daily cleaning. It's just using that same soapy cloth just to wipe the exterior of it. And you can wipe the racks down with that same cloth. It's real easy, especially on the SmartSteam. On the HyperSteam, same. Clean the racks, wipe the inside of the cavity out, and then just wipe down the exterior part of it. But in wiping down the exterior part of the unit, just make certain that it's not, that your cloth you use is not heavily saturated with water, so that it doesn't have an opportunity of any running into electricals or into louver panels and things of that nature.
Okay, we kind of have a question here also related a little bit to the exterior. Do you recommend a specific cleaner or cleaning solution for the exterior of the unit? I guess this person's looking to see if they can get it nice and shiny.
We do have a stainless steel cleaner that we use. Zipper is one that we would use for that stainless steel surface to kind of polish and clean. That's another one that we've recommended to a lot of customers as well for that.
All right, I got a question here that might be for you, Cliff. Is the High Plus good for steaming vegetables, or is it only applicable for proteins and seafood?
No, it can do either. It's very powerful. So this is a hard one. So if you remember the old steamers like you used to see in the TVs with the big submarine door handle, I mean, they were the biggest, baddest, fastest cooking units on the planet. But because of the power with them, they actually they were hard on the vegetables. They cooked it, but you lost a lot of the reason we're eating the vegetables. You lost the look of the clean, crisp vegetable. So yeah, it will do it. You just you have to pay a little attention to it because of the power of the unit. You want to make sure that you don't overcook the vegetables.
All right, I'm trying to see if we have anything left here in our queue. Looks like we fielded the questions that we had in our Q&A portion. So thank you again for attending today's webinar. Our contact information is on the screen for your reference. Make sure to complete the short survey heading your way to let us know what you think. Your feedback will help to inform us of the topics, format, and timing that best meets your needs for future events. This webinar was the first in our Summer Webinar Festival series. We hope you join us next Wednesday for a webinar featuring our partners at Cleveland and throughout the rest of the summer for great preventative maintenance and equipment troubleshooting content straight from several of our manufacturer partners and industry experts. Thanks also to our partners at Unified Brands for your time and valuable information provided today. Everyone have a great rest of your afternoon.